Hi everyone, this is Al McKay. Welcome to episode 169. I'm speaking with Mike Morris from The Simpsons and DuckTales and discussing everything animation-wise. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Alan McKay Podcast. Alan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Alan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Alan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on alanmckay.com.
Have you ever sent in your reel wondering why you didn't get the callback? Or what was the reason you didn't get the job? Here's the thing, most of us think you just put your latest work on your reel to some cool music and send it off, and then you get the job. A lot of us aren't aware that the majority of the reels sent to studios are skipped through and sometimes never even watched in the first place. The fact is, everything we're taught about landing a job as an artist is wrong. Over the past 20 years working for studios like Industrial Light and Magic, Ubisoft, Blur Studio, I built hundreds of teams, hired thousands of artists, and reviewed tens of thousands of reels. That's why I decided to write a book from the perspective of somebody that actually does the hiring. Learn the exact formula to captivate and qualify you as the obvious artist for the job, how to build a reel that ranks high on YouTube and attracts studios to you. The best part is with this book, you can get it right now absolutely free. Whether you're in design, games, TV, or film, go over to alanmckay.com/myreel. Okay, so welcome to a brand new episode. I'm really excited for this episode. I'm going to be speaking with Mike Morris, who's got a vast background in animation, working on everything from DuckTales to Future Worm, and of course, The Simpsons. And we discuss a lot of the back end of the animation industry and the animation process, as well as, of course, some of the amazing projects that he's worked on. Now, before we get into this episode, I wanted to just quickly mention that the Venom training that I've mentioned in the past is still available for another week. So if you want to get access to this, go to alanmckay.com/venom to get access to all 5 videos and over 7 hours of high-end visual effects training. All of that is free, and I'm really excited for that. There was a bit of a false start where I mentioned it was out and it wasn't quite ready yet because a lot of work has gone into this, but I'm excited for this, and it's been really amazing and inspiring to see what everyone's been able to do with this training so far. So use this and take advantage of it while this training is available, and go to alanmckay.com/venom to sign up. It's free and you get access to everything, including the scene assets, including a high-res production model of Venom, fully animated and ready to rock. So lots of really cool stuff in there. That being said, let's dive into this episode. And if you want the show notes, go to alanmckay.com/169. Thanks for taking the time to chat. Mike, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Mike Morris. I'm an animator, storyboard artist, and sometimes director. I've worked in animation since 2006. And I've worked on several different projects. My first gig out of school was I worked on The Simpsons and was there for several years. I was lucky enough to intern on Princess and the Frog when that was happening at Disney Feature. After that, I went back to The Simpsons, and then now I'm at Disney TV. Mm-hmm. And I worked on a show called Future Worm with the great Ryan Quincy. And then did some development work for Warner Brothers, and I've done storybook stuff for DreamWorks. But my latest gig is working on DuckTales at Disney TVA.
That's awesome, man. So cool. And I guess, like, going back to the very beginning, I mean, you growing up, did you ever expect that you would be an animator? Was that always your passion? Or, and again, animator being the whole animation field, but was that always your passion to be an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. Ever since I was little. It was in high school, and I went to high school in the 90s, so that was like the height of like comic book craziness in my generation anyway. And so I was kind of like wondering, where am I going to go with this art? I mean, am I going to go into illustration, or am I going to do comics, or am I going to do animation? Because I love all of those things. And then I went to the movie theater and saw The Lion King, and that was like what kind of pushed me over that edge, you know.
Yeah, that's so cool. And
seeing Rob Minkoff later on at CTNX and totally like slobbery fanboy gibberish we're trying to talk about at this point.
did you get were you brought up in California or whereabouts?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a SoCal native. Yeah.
Yeah, just curious because I mean, again, I think there's a few select cities in the world where growing up you're gonna initially be like, okay, yeah, I could do this for a living, instead of it being like, oh, that's not something that people actually do as a job. So that's really cool. And I guess like I'm always curious about this. Like, did you find any resistance from people around you if you were saying like, hey, I want to do a creative job for a living? Like, were a lot of people saying, go be a lawyer, go be a doctor?
Actually, for me, not really. My parents were really supportive. I mean, for Christmas, my parents bought me like reams of drawing paper.
That's great.
They were always really supportive of that. My grandparents as well. I mean, and I grew up in Inland Empire in Orange County, a little bit removed from where the animation industry itself was. I had no idea how to break into that. But I mean, I grew up in, going to Disneyland when I was a kid and seeing all of that stuff. And, my grandmother had bought one of the first VCRs that had come out.
Wow.
So that kind of like dates me as a person. But I just remember watching all those VHS tapes of the Disney stuff for hours and hours and hours. And then eventually I was introduced to more of the Looney Tunes stuff. And that was amazing and captivating as well. And so, that classic 30s, 40s, 50s animation is what really kind of captivated my imagination. So, I got books and I got all this, stuff. My uncle was a graphic artist, and he got me some supplies and things too. But I mean, for me, it was all down to, you watch those movies and you see there's the credits. You see, oh, this guy did this, and this lady did this, and this guy did this. It's like, well, there's people making these. Why not? Why can't I be one of them?
I love it. Because, I think you're right. Like, I was just reading a book the other day. It was called Escape, which it's more about the entrepreneurial mindset. But one of the key things it leads into is that as kids, we're so curious and we don't have that no factor built into us. So anything's possible, therefore it's just persistence. Whether it is falling over, constantly trying to walk, you're not like, oh, you cannot walk. It's just like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I think as we grow older, we kind of have that beaten out of us a little bit. But I love that for you. It's just like having that kind of reinforcement from the people around you, opposed to the other way around. And for you to have that mindset of, well, there's people out there doing this, I'm going to be one of them as well. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a song that always comes to mind for the mindset you're talking about. I don't know if you're familiar with the works of the Aquabats, but there's
my favorite band. No, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Well, there's a band called the Aquabats, and they have a song called Lobster Bucket, which is essentially, I don't know if you're familiar with how that works, but if, the idea of the one tries to climb out and the other one's pull it right back in.
Yeah.
And that is such a common scenario. I met a lot of people that are like, is that, oh, you want to go into art? Well, that's just going to waste your time. Why waste your life doing that? And yet these are the same people that after a hard day's work sit down on their couch and watch TV or watch a movie. And it's like, no, that's actually performing a really great thing for people. It's helping them release that terrible tension and stress that they carry around all the time with themselves.
That's great. I think a lot of times people are more projecting their own fear of like, I can't do that, therefore no one else can. So it's kind of weird. I'm always interested in that. Like Australia, I'm originally from Australia. I hide my accent well, but we have a thing called tall poppy syndrome, which is like the poppy seeds all grow and in a poppy field, and if one grows higher than the others, you cut it down. And that's definitely the same kind of mindset where it's kind of celebrated to kind of be mediocre rather than anyone wanting to do more. So, again, I feel like in the creative field, a lot of us strive to really push ourselves, but you do get people who maybe don't get it, they don't quite understand, and therefore, if they don't, then it's instant dismissal on their behalf. Yeah, it's kind of sucks, especially when this is something you're so passionate about, opposed to it being an accountant or something which is more, you're doing it because it's a logical, safe thing to do.
Right. And, there's the people or the world needs folks that are doing those kind of jobs. I mean, and people can make a great living doing that. It all depends on what really you're wanting out of the work that you do. For a lot of us artists, I think we want sort of a part of us to live forever in the things that we make. And then some people really don't care about leaving any sort of legacy like that, and they're just fine going to work, doing their thing, and then going home and engaging in the real parts of life. For some people, work is just work, something to just get out of the way. For us, I feel like it's more of a passionate endeavor. Like, we're making something. We're making something that we hope will last longer than we're alive.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those kind of occupations that we're in that I've never experienced before, where you go to dinner with your friends and you bring your partners with you, and like your wife, your fiance, girlfriend, whatever. And, it took me a while to realize this, that we'd always have to have the conscious kind of discussion, all the guys like, okay, no work talk. Let's not talk about art or animation tonight because we got to be social. And I don't think of any other career out there, like, as a doctor, certain situations are going to be different, but usually you don't have to like avoid the subject of work. Whereas with us, I think, again, it's that total immersion. You kind of, you live and breathe it, so even when you're not working at lunch, you're talking about it. You're talking about what other people are doing. And it's that love for it that we have that you don't find in many other jobs.
Well, it's true. I imagine some doctors, especially pediatricians, will get together and be like, oh my gosh, I found the weirdest thing in this kid's nose. Something like that. I think that's like a man thing, We're wired for work. I mean, that's kind of like what we do. And getting away from that sometimes is hard. It's necessary because, you don't want it to consume everything, especially when you have, meaningful relationships like wife, girlfriend, so on and so forth. And you definitely have to have that work-life balance that's so difficult to get. But that, again, the passion is what brings us back to talking about it because, and it occurs to me, over the years I've been doing this that, the old example of what do you think about when you're not having to be on task? When you're not having to focus on anything, where does your mind go to? And a lot of times mine goes to creative endeavors or cartoons or something I've seen or something that interests me or a curiosity of some kind. And I think as artists, we have a certain innate curiosity that drives us forward, or at least it should. Curiosity with the world around us or something that we actually want to say about the environment we live in, and how to communicate that properly to other people.
I love that. And for you, do you find like when you're not working, you tend to still like, do you have any personal projects that you're doing or other kind of
any personal projects that I'm doing? I'm actually working on right now the trailer for the upcoming IAMC 19. Actually, all of you, the speakers, are going to be prominently featured therein as Overwatch style.
That's great.
Cartoon characters that are fighting off alien blob monsters in Paris.
Cool. That's so cool. I'm always blown away by the titles. Like whoever gets to do them each year, it's always phenomenal. So that's really cool. Like that sounds really original.
I think it's cool. I hope that it turns out well.
I'm sure it will. No, that's great. That's going to be really fun. And actually, just to jump into that for a moment, like we're both going to be in Paris. I don't actually know if I'm speaking this year. That's the confusing thing. So there's a couple of us who have been speaking every year. Raph, who's one of the art directors at Ubisoft, Mark Simonetti, and myself. So the three of us were kind of guests of honor, but I would still love to talk and kind of justify my plane ticket over there. So we'll see what happens with that. But for you, like, what's your talk on in the IAMAG Masterclass next year? Sorry.
Well, actually, one of the reasons that I'm doing this particular trailer is so I will be able to speak about it and how to build that experience from concept to completion. And I think, generally talking about story and talking about, things that I've learned in the time I've spent in working in entertainment.
That's so cool. That's awesome. And just kind of jumping around a little bit, with your initial career, like you went from having that passion of wanting to do this, and you went to college, you went to Cal Arts, is that right? Or where'd you go?
Yeah, I went to Cal Arts, class of 06.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And what year was that?
2006.
Okay, awesome.
Or ought six, as the old people say.
That's really cool. And like from there, you went right into working. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, it was kind of funny because so many people at school were like freaking out because there wasn't a ton going on right when we graduated. But a couple of folks from The Simpsons came down. It was Mark Kirkland and Karen Carnegie at the time. Now Karen Carnegie Johnson. She's actually the president of the Animation Union now.
Wow.
But they came down talking about potentially working for The Simpsons because Mark was an alumni and became a good mentor of mine. And they were recruiting, and I was like, "Oh, awesome! You mean I get to still, work on paper and all this stuff?" And going and working on The Simpsons, I think I started like either season 18 or 19, which is crazy for a show. They're up to season 30 now, which is wild. But it was like going back to cartoon school, only that was like for realsies now. You go to Cal Arts, you go to animation school, and it's great. You meet a lot of people there, and then you are exposed to a lot of different kinds of art there and a lot of different concepts that maybe you hadn't thought about before. And you build sort of a network that you can be friends with lifelong in some cases. But it's still a lot of like theoretical stuff, and you don't quite. It's mostly focused on the creativity, not on the nuts and bolts of the craft. And every studio does things differently, so I understand why they do that. But when I got on The Simpsons, there was a lot of things that they talked about that were, specific to The Simpsons, like, not tipping a joke or using reveals to your advantage, or what else? The importance of just letting timing do its thing some of the time. And timing, I think, is such an important thing to get right in any sort of media.
I was going to say anything, because I think in even when you're blowing up a building or whatever else, like you got to hit those right beats. And I think a lot of people are so focused on the visuals and not actually thinking about the pacing and everything else. So it's interesting. It does transcend everything.
Yeah, timing's so important. I mean, even in general life, timing's important. I mean,
So
a lot of
deep thought right there.
Yeah. Timing's so key. I mean, sometimes people have experiences in their life that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the right timing.
Absolutely, that's cool. And I guess from there, like most people would be pretty jealous that you're able to land a job on The Simpsons like right off the bat, like right out of college. Did you find? Because I always find it's interesting as well. Like usually there are a few key people who will leave college and go off and work right away, and it's usually those ones who are, when they do land at that studio, end up bringing in a few other people with them. And I always think it's so valuable for people while they are in college to network and get to know everyone, because it is kind of that was it monkey bars or whatever? No, monkey bars, the monkey in a barrel or whatever. Like where everyone's daisy chained together. One person comes in, they bring in like 2 or 3 other people because they're like, oh, I know this other person in school who's really good, or she's really good. So it's really valuable to have that kind of connection with people who might have that momentum before you.
Well, I was actually brought onto Future Worm by a guy I went to school with, Devin Roth, who's now art directing the show Final Space.
Great.
For TBS, I think it is. And he said, "Hey, what are you up to?" And I was like, "Well, I'm boarding on The Simpsons right now. What's up?" And he's like, "Oh, there's a show called Future Worm, and it's starting up. They're looking for guys." And I said, "Oh, awesome." And I thought I'd give it a shot and see what happened. And the timing worked out. And I eventually went on to do boards for Future Worm, and then became storyboard supervisor, and then directed some episodes towards the end of this first season.
That's great. That's really cool.
So, yeah, I still believe, and a lot of us still keep in contact with one another, some more than others, but, you see, it's really incredible actually to watch some of the people that I've gone to school with go on to do these amazing things. Like J.G. Quintel, who did Regular Show, was in the same class as me, and Penn Ward, Adventure Time was also there, and Alex Hirsch, who did Gravity Falls, and now he's signed some crazy deal with Netflix, was there as well. It was a really cool time to be at Cal Arts and see, like, it's just fascinating to watch what everybody's doing now.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
DuckTales, I went to school with the art director, Sean Jimenez, who was awesome as well, is working on the show right now. And so, see him at work all the time. It's fun.
What's a good point? Like, how valuable do you think networking is in this industry?
Invaluable. I think it's beyond valuable.
I think it's one of the most overlooked things yet, and also undervalued things as well. I'm
convinced that you can get just about anything you want to do accomplished, given that you know the right people. And you have the determination to see something through. So, networking is of penultimate importance. And, a lot of artists actually, most of us are so introverted. And so, kind of wary about our surroundings, that it's hard to kind of shake that off and, talk to people. And that I totally understand. It's a common thing. But you really need to kind of, I don't know, through force of will or something like that, kind of get yourself out there and meet some people, make some friends. You never know. You might meet somebody that you will want to spend a ton of time with. That's just super fun to be around.
Inspiring, like they're like-minded people. They're doing what you do, and you all get to push and pull each other into where you're at. So I think it's so critical and so overlooked in a lot of ways in terms of how important it is. I always think, I hate to say this, but like I do think that networking and then your portfolio is kind of like the order of things. Like your resume is at the bottom, but who you know and all the other connections are the most critical. Obviously, your portfolio is the most critical thing, but that's where I feel like networking kind of is above that. Like having that strong social capital with other people, that's going to transcend everything else, because that way you have a direct line. Instead of putting in your job application into a system or through a recruiter, you can literally just call someone up and say, hey, I saw you guys are, looking for people, like, when can I start? So I think it's so critical.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely. I think it gives you just a sense of what's going on, like what's going on around town. Burbank, Glendale, where we all make most of this stuff, is a pretty small place, really. And it always makes me laugh when, well, I guess it doesn't make me laugh. It's amusing to see folks are like, I want to work and make cartoons, but I want to live in Saskatchewan, or something like that. I don't want to leave and go to California to make cartoons. It's like, well, this is kind of where cartoons are happening. The internet's making it much easier to work from other places remotely, but I think at least for a little while, you kind of got to do your time in Burbank before you get into the entrepreneurial stuff like what you're up to.
Sorry, I thought it was funny that you're saying that. I'm like, you got to do your time in the valley. And it's just like, no, I don't want to. I did it when I first moved to LA. I lived in Burbank on Verdugo on Hollywood Way, so actually right near Warner Brothers. And I hated LA at first. I was 21, and then I moved to Venice right towards the end of my stay in LA, and I'm like, oh wait, I don't hate LA. I just hate the valley. But Burbank is nice. It's just when I'm 21 years old, it's not where you want to be. But as an actual city, it's really nice. But yeah, it's so critical. You got to go and be around other people and learn before you can go off and be on your own. Otherwise, you're not going to get that growth. You're not going to get exposure to other artists. And, I think that immersion is really critical to kind of really elevate your skills. So that's great.
One of the things that a lot of people don't really realize, and there's kind of an air of this that goes around in the modern culture, is that people want to be like instantly amazing at everything they do. And I'm sorry, but that's just not the way things work. It's a process. And so coming to where your chosen vocation happens, then, you'll get exposed to stuff that you never even considered, or ways of doing things you never even considered. And it's a process, and it's a lifelong, it's a lifelong endeavor, really. Even people like, Frank Johnston and Frank Johnson, they're really good friends. Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, talk about animation as a craft and animation as a lifelong endeavor. Art is a lifelong endeavor. You'll never master it. And, it's when you think you've got things on lock that you backsliding. Sometimes we all get burned out too, and you have to take a break and have some life experiences and then come back. But as long as you come back.
Yeah, no, that's so critical. Like for you, how do you typically deal with burnout?
Oh man, after the first season of Future Worm, we were like really pushing towards the end, and after the season was over, like I was dealing with a little bit of burnout, and I think it's all about finding something that is kind of related, but still can get those things flowing. Like I found virtual reality. So that was one of the things that kind of got me wanting to make stuff again. I was at SIGGRAPH, and when it was in LA, and tried on a Oculus and a Vive for the first time. I was like, I've got to get this. I've got to.
That's great.
Even like the dumbest little derpy game that they had going on was amazing. You look around, and then I started creating things in virtual reality and doing that stuff. And now me and some friends run a VR club here at Disney TVA. Just on our own time. It's nothing official, but it's been a lot of fun. And we were kind of figuring out how we can use it to make our own cartoons.
Have you experimented with that, trying to put in your own work? I mean, even when it comes to doing like 3D panoramic stories that you can sit in the center of and see everything going on around you. Have you experimented with that much?
Yeah, actually, I do some beta work and general sort of testing for some folks out in St. Petersburg in Russia on a program called Tvori, which is great. It's almost like in virtual reality you have just a toy box full of toys and a landscape and whatever you want, basically, that you can just stick on the surface and just play. It almost reminds me of being a kid again and playing with stuff, but this time you're doing it in sort of a stop motion thing with invisible hands. The only reason that we don't do stop motion in real time is because we have visible hands. So we'll get in the way, and you see somebody, the illusion is broken when you see little hands go, "Hey everybody, let's look at me, I'm going to move around now." It kind of ruins the whole magic. Thus the stop motion. Stop it, move it, get out of the way, shoot it, so on and so forth. But with Tvori and virtual reality, it actually lends itself to you can be wherever you want. Nobody can see you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you get to Paris, I was going to introduce you, but you'll obviously meet him. Goro Fujita. He's been to the last 2 of 5, and he works for Facebook on Quill.
Yeah.
So
I've met Goro before at CTNX. He's cool. We didn't have a chance to just sit and talk or anything because he didn't know me from anybody, but. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to him a little bit.
He's great. He's such an amazing guy, and like I love his style of art alone. But for me these days, like I'm more just blown away because he does like I sat through one of his talks, and it was just really inspiring because it almost made me want to paint again, and I don't paint. So but just his kind of journey through doing speed painting every single day, and what I'm more amazed at is like now he does that in VR, and just the ideas, like I'm sure you're the same way, but like just the ideas he'll come up with like a whole concept every single day, and like to me that is even more inspiring than his work or anything else he's doing. It's just being able to come up with like a whole new concept, like a really creatively brilliant concept every single day. And I think that I guess is part of the whole practice, like working that creative muscle every day to come up with that. So
that's key. Yeah. Persistence is definitely the key. I remember upon occasion at CTNX, I work with the Wacom Americas to do a thing called the Cintiq Showdown, where we do like a small prompt that's created from like a random generator, and then it's a art competition where people get like 10 minutes to then illustrate it out. And you see those folks that have been working that creative muscle because they tend to come up with stuff that's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more off the wall, a little bit more, it elicits more of a response, whereas, some folks that get up there and they kind of freeze, or, there's a lot of factors in play there, but you can tell the people that have really knuckled down and been persistent with their artwork.
Cool. And for you, do you have any kind of morning rituals or, kind of daily habits that you tend to do, whether they're creative or or just anything in general that you think kind of aids you in your day-to-day work?
I don't know if I have anything that's, so ritualistic, I guess. Not really anything like that. I just try and sneak in some drawing where I can, Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that when you have ideas that you get them down quickly. I actually have a OneNote on my phone that whenever I get an idea, I will jot it down in that and then expand on it later. Or just using like the voice record feature and saying, idea for this, let's do this and this and maybe try that too. But like when you have those moments of inspiration, and there was actually a masterclass commercial, only the other masterclass with this one was Anne Leibovitz talking about photography, and she said something that kind of struck me as really cool. Like spend your time finding that inspiration. She said that this one artist just waits sitting on her bed until she gets inspired. And inspiration is so important, but we all draw it from different places, whether it be through hard work and daily practice, almost ritualistically, or if it's from just being out in the world and observation. We just had a thing here at Television Animation here at Disney where they do these TVA Academy classes. And our chief creative officer, Shane Prigmore, was showing us drawings that he had done. And there was a lot of different drawings that he had done. And I was amazed that he got away with so much drawing on his honeymoon in Italy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's funny. I've got so many stories of people who've literally been told, like, I know one guy in Vancouver's now wife was like, if you bring your laptop on a honeymoon, it's over. And to me, like, this is really not a good thing, but he is telling me so excited about how he waited till she was asleep and he was under the sheets with his laptop doing 3D animation, like, in his bed on his wedding night or honeymoon night. And to me, that's going a little too far. You know what I mean? I wouldn't brag about that, but I do think that we all have that obsession, and it's that kind of outlet that makes us happy. So it's the same way that some people might see us being workaholics, but for us, it's like, well, this isn't work. We love.
Well, I mean, it is. It can be. It can be work. I mean, we're all working, but at the same time, it's work that we're more interested in, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Because everybody's worked on some sort of project that they're just like, I don't know, this is kind of a job now. But we've also all had things where we were like, see the what's coming our way and be like, oh yeah, this is going to be amazing. You get moments of both, and cherish the moments that you have when you're really working on something cool, and then cherish the moments that make the other ones more cool. I mean, even in the mundane moments, you can use those as fuel, to do something that's even more, that you're even more passionate about.
True. And for you, like, what was it like working on The Simpsons? Because you worked on it a couple of times, like, on and off. So, what was the experience like?
It was great. The folks there are awesome. I mean, it's definitely like a family-ish environment there. Everybody knew everybody, and when I was new, I was kind of like not sure what to expect, and but it came around pretty quickly. And I have friends there that are amazing, and they do amazing work. And I wish them nothing but the best, because I learned a lot there and I grew a lot there, I feel like. And you learn things like how to tell a joke visually, which is kind of an elusive concept a lot of the time. People.
That's great. That's really cool.
You have those sort of savants that just can make funny drawings, but most of the time we're all working for them.
And I guess, like, how's the process changed over the years? I mean, from obviously doing more traditional cell animation, a lot of it's more on computer these days. Like, if you like observing it all, how has it changed in like the last, let's say, 10 years?
Well, I was at the Simpsons. I was present for the transition from paper to digital, and both have their advantages and both have their drawbacks. I feel like working in naturalistic media is much more, it's more tactile, it's actually more approachable. But working in digital has a certain malleability about it that that is just unescapable in a lot of ways. But I mean, I'm a proponent of both. It's working on paper and stuff keeps your mind sharp and keeps your skills working well. But the digital, you can just get stuff done a lot faster, I feel like. And I think that's been kind of the key in that is that, working digitally has made it so it's a much more fast-paced environment than it ever has been.
Cool. And I guess witnessing that, like, was there a lot of resistance from people going from more of the traditional paper approach to switching to digital? Some
more than others. It just depends on the person, really. Some people are like, hey, this is pretty cool. Other people are like, crosses with their fingers. Like, or like a vampire who somebody, pulled the curtain on and shed him to expose him to sunlight or something. He burns, get it away,
I was chatting with a few of the guys from Pixar who were there, like, kind of transitioning from Disney Animator to going to Pixar and getting on the computer. And yeah, surprised. Like, a lot of people are embracing it and really excited to kind of go the next evolution of what they're doing. But I'm sure for some people it's really intimidating, at least in the sense that doing cell animation or 2D animation, you're still going to be using a pen most of the time, at least a Wacom pen. So it's not as alien as switching to a mouse and saying, like, okay, like, I'm going to be moving a mannequin around instead of doing all my key poses. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool though when you are able to embrace it.
Well, I remember when I was in school, you would get a new math book or something, right? And you'd look at the end of the math book and be like, I don't know if this is ever going to happen. But then you go through the book and it happens, and it, at the end you understand it. It's just time and patience and sticking at it. And it can be intimidating at first, but I'm sure that there's certain people in your life or whatever that person was sort of intimidating at first either until you got to know them. I mean, animation and the tools are the same way. They're intimidating until you get to know them, and then you get to know them, and it's like, oh, hey, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, I didn't like him at first, but now he's okay. That's good. What kind of tools do you typically use these days? I mean, is it Toon Boom or what specifically?
I love Toon Boom. I use Clip Studio Paint. Love that. I've been using TV Paint, which has been fun. But most of my work here at the studio is Toon Boom.
Right. Cool. That's really cool. And what about DuckTales? Like switching to that? I mean, that's your latest endeavor, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's we're Toon Boom drop here.
Cool. How's it feel to kind of go from something you probably grew up with to looping full circle and getting to work on it?
Oh, it's awesome. Like that was one of my bucket list things for my career was to work with Donald Duck at some point. And
cool.
I've always been a huge Donald fan.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking about DuckTales the other day for some reason. Don't know why, because it's pure coincidence. Because I'm just like, oh yeah, like I literally like a week ago had a discussion about this DuckTales and what's the one with the chipmunks, but they're
Rescue Rangers.
Flying. What is it?
Rescue Rangers.
Rescue Rangers. Yeah. So I think we're trying to differentiate between the two, like which was which. But yeah, that's so cool.
My brother showed me a meme the other day of it was Tom Selleck as Magnum PI and Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, and then right next to it was Chip and Dale wearing the exact same outfits of Rescue Rangers. And I was like, oh.
I like it. That's so cool, man. And yeah, I mean, again, I'm really excited for Paris. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. You got any surprises for what the intro is going to be like?
I don't know if I have any surprises, but if it's a surprise, you want to keep it a surprise until it comes out, right?
Just curious. That's cool, man. And like, where can people go to find out more about you? Do you have a website or social media?
I have my online presence. I'm terrible about keeping good or keeping it running smoothly. A lot of the stuff that I work on my own time is still like sort of development artwork that I'm not ready to kind of get out into the world yet. But you can find me on Facebook, actually, at facebook.com/animikeart. That's ANIMIKEART.
That's great. Cool. I'll link to it in the show notes. But yeah, man, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time to chat.
Oh, no problem. It's been great.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Mike. Thank you again, Mike, for taking the time to chat. This was a lot of fun. Now, that being said, I'm going to be back next week. I'm doing a roundtable with the writers at Cinefex about the past 40 years of production in film. So this is going to be a very special episode. It's actually a two-parter, so it's going to be released Tuesday, and the following episode will be on Thursday, and we get into everything over the past 40 years, discussing Cinefex as a magazine, and a lot of really cool behind-the-scenes production stories, as well as, of course, movie making and how it's changed over the years. I gotta say, I was really blown away when I was approached to do this, because I think that this is honestly an honor for me to get to interview these guys. I've been such a fan of Cinefex, as we all have throughout our entire career. I would always make jokes when we were doing the behind the scenes on a movie, quick, do the Cinefex pose, and we'd all point at the screen, and one of us would put our hand rested on our chin or whatever it might be. But it was always just a fun thing that Cinefex has been the backbone of documenting the visual effects and movie making in general for so many decades. So I was really inspired to do this one, and it was honestly a great honor to get to chat with everyone about this. So that episode and the following one are going to be coming out next week, so definitely check these out. And then following from there, I've got an episode with Aaron Denner, who's a VFX soup in New York, and then Jeannie Santos, who's one of the old school original Pixar supervisors who's been in the industry for many, many years and shares so many insights at Pixar, stories of meeting Steve Jobs, and so many other cool things. So there are so many cool episodes lined up and coming out. I'm so excited to be able to announce all of them when they are closer to release. But that being said, I'll be back next week with Cinefex. And in the meantime, check out the show notes at alanmckay.com/169. Finally, the Venom training is available for one more week, so go to alanmckay.com/venom to get access to this as well. All right, so that being said, I'll be back next week. Until then, rock on.